I made a video a little while ago talking about how you should absolutely not buy the Fujifilm X-E5. I mentioned that there were several other cameras that were just as good, if not better, and that cost just as much, if not less. And that spending the money on the Fujifilm X-E5 would be a big mistake. So I bought an X-E5. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and welcome back to the Spare Tech Room, where I try to help you make better tech choices. Now, if you want to see that full video talking about the different cameras that I recommended outside of the X-E5, I will link that right up here. You can check that out next. But a few people did mention in the comments of that video that how could I possibly say that you shouldn't buy the X-E5 if I didn't try it out for myself first? So I picked one up. I've actually been using it for the past month or so, but I went ahead and packaged it all back up so that way you can see exactly what the unboxing experience looks like. Then after I post this video, the next video I'm going to make is actually my full review of the Fujifilm X-E5, so stick around for that. But for now, for those that are curious, this is the box that the X-E5 comes in. This is the version that comes with the 23mm lens. And honestly, I think this is the bundle to get if you're going to be picking up this camera, specifically because the 23mm lens is fantastic. It really goes perfectly with the smaller body of the X-E5. And if you were to just buy that lens on its own, it would cost you way more money. So you might as well get it with the camera. So, okay, let's go ahead and crack this box open and take a look at what you get inside. Let's bust this open real quick. And the first thing you're going to notice here is some paperwork. You've got some access to, I believe, is this? Yes, to register your product. You also have a little free trial to Capture One, which is kind of like Lightroom. It's a different version of that. So you can test that out if you want to. We'll set that to the side. And then we'll peel back this cardboard right here. And you've got the camera body up here with the lens and then a few accessories. So we'll check out the accessories first. The first one I'll show you here, which I've already taken out of the wrapping, is the neck strap that comes with the camera. This is actually a pretty cool neck strap. I think it's a rope neck strap, and it's kind of made out of a pretty solid material. Of course, you can attach this to the eyelets on the side of the camera. I personally like to use a rope neck strap that has Peak Design anchors attached to it. It's been really great, and it's honestly not very expensive at all. I'll link to that neck strap in the description box below if you want to check it out. But if you don't already have a neck strap, this is a fantastic one to start off with. So setting that to the side, we have a few other things in here. There is, of course, a battery. This is the NPW126S battery, which is the smaller of the two battery types that Fujifilm has. You know, I wish they used the larger batteries on this camera because it is a 40 megapixel camera, so it's going to chew through these batteries a little quicker than some of the other cameras might. But you can also pick up spares for super cheap, and they're very small, so you can throw a couple in your bag or even throw a spare in your pocket if you don't want to carry a bag with you. So we've got that. There's a few other things in here. We've got the lens cap for the body and for the lens that comes attached here. So we've set that to the side. There's also I'm not sure what this is actually, maybe I'll throw it up on screen here, but it's this tiny little plastic piece. I honestly don't know what this is for. If you know, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll try to find it. And yeah, I'll throw something up on the screen here. There is another little cap here. I don't know if that's a lens cap or what that is, but you've got that. Set that to the side. And you also have a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter here. If I remember correctly, there is a microphone jack on the camera, but there's not a headphone jack. So you'll want to use the USB-C to headphone adapter here. But it's nice that that comes with that and you don't have to pick one up for yourself. Okay, next up is the actual camera and the lens that it's attached to. So let's go ahead and pull that out. It's in this very noisy wrapping paper, so we'll set that off to the side. And this is the Fujifilm X-E5 in all its glory with the 23mm f2.8 pancake lens attached to it. And I gotta be honest, this feels really good. This is a very dense feeling camera. I mean, it feels very sturdy in the hand. But let's walk around the camera so you can see exactly what you get with it. First off, we've got this lens attached, so I'll just remove that real quick so that way you can take a better look at that. There's a little lens cap on it. And you'll see here, it is a 23mm f2.8 weather-resistant lens, which is nice. And it's got a 39mm diameter if you wanted to attach any kind of filters or anything like that to it. It also has an aperture dial on here, which I really like. This is kind of cool. You can set it into auto and then, of course, control your aperture via your camera, or you can manually adjust it here. One of the cool things too is that in order to slide that around, you have to press in this little button right here. And then once you do that, it might be hard to do since it's not attached to the camera. But once you press that button, you can change the aperture on there and you'll hear that it clicks as you change it. Or you just slide it back into auto. But you do have to press that button first, which I think makes it a little better. It makes it easier to not accidentally bump the aperture ring or anything like that. You also, of course, have a focus ring on here, which turns pretty smoothly. You know, it's got a little tension to it, but nothing to complain about there. But yeah, this is a nice little small, compact 23mm lens, which of course is going to be around 35mm in full frame. And in my opinion, that's kind of my ideal walk around focal length. I know some people prefer 40mm, some people prefer 50, or some people even like to go as wide as 28. I feel like 35 is just kind of like that really sweet, traditional, classic focal length. So I really dig it. We've got that. I'll set that to the side as well. Let's look at the camera a bit more. Of course, we have the APS-C size sensor in here. This is the 40 megapixel sensor. Of course, Fujifilm has a couple cameras that have the 40 megapixel sensor and some with their 26 megapixel. This one's definitely going to have some larger files. So if you're doing a lot of photography on that, there's pros and cons to that. Of course, with a larger file, you have the ability to crop in more on your picture, but it's also going to take up more storage and be more difficult to manipulate and edit. But this is a tried and true sensor. It's really the same one that you get in something like the X-T5 or X-T50. So if you're familiar with either of those cameras, you know exactly what you're getting here. On the front of the camera here, you also have a front dial, which is clickable. So you can press that in and toggle between different settings if you want to use it to control, you know, like your ISO, and then you click it again, you can control your aperture, you click it again, and you can change your film simulation. So you have a few different options there to toggle between. It's got this button right here and a little toggle that you can slide left or right. This is also pretty cool. You can map this to whatever you'd like. By default, the toggle, I believe, is mapped to kind of a zoom mode. So if you have that 23mm lens attached to this, you can slide it one way and that'll take it to, I want to say like a 50mm full frame equivalent, and then you slide it again and it switches to something like a 75mm. Of course, it's cropping in on your sensor, so it is going to cut back on some of the picture quality, but it's cool to have just right there, especially if you don't want to have to attach, you know, big zoom lenses to this smaller body. Moving over to the side of the camera, on one side here, you don't really have anything. You just have a little eyelet. One thing I don't like about this though is that it is just this tiny little eyelet to attach your wrist straps or neck straps to. Something like the XM5. This is not a comparison video, but something like the XM5. You have these kind of wider eyelets here, so you can really slide through whatever straps that you want to on that pretty easily. And so I really appreciate that. Whereas with this one, you would have to get some kind of attachment in order to really fit anything on there. And I don't know, it just feels like it's an easy oversight. They could have, you know, slapped on a couple of little eyelets that would have made it easier for you to attach straps to. Kind of feels like they cut some corners there. But that's on one side. On the other side, of course, you have that other eyelet. You have your diopter to change the electronic viewfinder. So if you wear glasses and you need to adjust that, you can do so here. You have the manual, continual, or single autofocus switch, which I absolutely love. I like to be able to switch quickly between my focus options, throwing it into manual mode and really locking down focus, or switching between single and continual autofocus depending on what I'm shooting. And so I love that they have that toggle right here. A lot of other cameras, other Fujifilm cameras have it kind of at the front, which I don't know if I have a preference one way or the other. I know some people have opinions on that. I really feel like either way is fine. You know, having it on the front, you do have to kind of look around front to make sure that you have it set right. And this is, I guess, a little closer to the back side, so it's easier to visually access. But I also don't know if I love the slider. I kind of prefer the toggle, the switch that you have on some of the other cameras, but it's fine. And I appreciate that they have it at all. You also have a little door here that you can open up. And in here, you're going to have your microphone jack, your USB-C port for charging, and of course for data transfer, and your HDMI port, which is a mini HDMI, I want to say. I always confuse mini and micro, but you've got that smaller HDMI port right here. There's no way they could have fit a full-size HDMI on this camera body, so you're just going to have to accept what we've got here. Although I will say, one thing that I recommend you pick up if you are going to be regularly connecting this to any kind of a video capture device. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here we go. I've got this little HDMI, mini HDMI to full-size HDMI adapter, and you can just slot that right in there. And that way you're not constantly plugging and unplugging HDMI cables into the body of the camera. You can just have that hanging off the side here and your full-size HDMI adapter. It's really great. I use this all the time. Aside from that, that's everything you get on that side of the camera. Before we go to the back side of the camera, we'll look underneath as well. You've got a little Bluetooth button down here, which is really handy to have. And it's also kind of tucked away in there, so you're not going to accidentally press that unless you actually go in there and try to press it. You've got, of course, the ability to attach this to a tripod if you want to, and the placement of this is perfect, dead center. I know a lot of other cameras will, especially smaller cameras, will put it closer to the battery door, which becomes a whole mess when you're trying to take your battery in or out or take your SD card in and out. But this is perfectly placed right in the center. Of course, you do have a battery door right here on the other side, and this is where your battery and your SD card will go into. One minor gripe I have with the SD card slot here is that it can be a pain to get your SD card out of there. You really have to like press it down and try to almost spring the SD card out. Otherwise, to get your fingers in there when there's a battery in place, to try to pull it out, it could be a real pain in the butt. But you've got that there. That's, again, another minor gripe. And then around back, on the back side of the camera here, you've got that electronic viewfinder, which I think is really fantastic. There's the sensor there, of course, to switch between the screen and the electronic viewfinder. So if you cover that up, it'll turn off the screen and turn on the viewfinder. You've got a dial here, which, oh, I guess I should show you the top. This is to change your film simulations. It's specifically a film simulation dial, which I also don't like. I don't know why Fujifilm is doing this, especially with their higher end cameras. I understand if you want to do it with your more entry-level camera, people that are just getting into film simulations, maybe they want a dial like this, but anybody who is spending the amount of money that this camera costs is most of them are not going to be using a film simulation dial. It's a waste, especially since you can control your film simulations from your front dial here really easily. And in fact, you have access to more film simulations virtually by using the screen in the front dial than you would on this dial right here. It just doesn't make any sense. Needless to say, it's there. You've also got your hot shoe mount there where you can attach flashes or microphones or whatever you'd like. You've got your shutter speed dial, which might take some getting used to if you're more familiar and comfortable with a typical PASM dial, but you can control your shutter speed here, or you can set it into an auto mode if you want to as well. There's the shutter button here, which has the ability to attach a soft shutter release, which I love, I always do. The on-off switch, which is fine. It's a little small and kind of hard to hit here. If you rub your finger against the front of the camera, you got to really kind of get in there to switch that. Again, not the end of the world, but could be a little, just if it was just a half a millimeter longer, it would be easier to toggle back and forth, but it is what it is. You've also got your exposure compensation dial right here, which is nice. I think it feels really good. It's not too easy to bump. And of course it has all the numbers on there so you can see exactly where you're at. There's also another custom button right up here, which is pretty small. It's not labeled or anything like that, but you've got a little custom button that you can assign to your liking. Now, back to the back. Sorry, I forgot about the top part, but now we're back on the back side here. You've got your drive and delete button. This is kind of annoying for a hybrid shooter like me who likes to take pictures and video and switch back and forth. You know, I like having a drive dial, which of course I would prefer if this film simulation dial was instead a drive dial. Being able to switch between video and photo mode and, you know, all of that on that dial would have been fantastic, but instead you have to dive into the menus in order to switch that. It's a little annoying. You also have a play button here to play back your footage or your images, auto exposure and autofocus lock. You also have the dial on the back here, which can also be pressed in and toggled between. So much like the front dial, you can switch between different settings here that you can control pretty easily. There's a joystick, which I love having a joystick. You have your menu and OK button and your display and back button, and then the little Q button right here, which will open up your quick menu. And I feel like that's in a good spot. I haven't had any problems getting to that, pressing it, and I also haven't accidentally pressed it. On some other cameras, they put the quick menu button in really unfortunate positions where either you accidentally bump it too often or it's just a real hassle to get to. But this, I think, is good. You also have the flipping screen here. Now, this screen is one that you can pull out. This is like kind of a more photography focused screen. So it will pull out like this if you want to do kind of lower level shooting. You can also aim it down if you want to do any kind of photography where you have the camera above your head. And you can pull it all the way out, up and around if you're doing any kind of like selfies or things like that, if you're recording yourself and you want to see yourself. So that's really good that you can do so. It does not have the ability to flip out, which is, I would like that, mainly because when you have the ability to flip out like that, typically that means you can turn the screen around and close it in on the body. But here the screen is just always exposed no matter what. So you want to make sure if you're getting this, you absolutely get a screen protector, because this is going to be exposed 24/7. And if you're taking it out and about with you, there's a solid chance that it gets scratched. And if it does, it is such a pain to have a scratch screen on your camera. So definitely pick up a screen protector. I'll drop some that I recommend in the description box below. They're super cheap, but they are going to save you a ton of headache. So I highly recommend it. But I think that is it. That is the full walkthrough of the X-E5. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a full review and comparison between this and a few other Fujifilm cameras coming up very soon. So stick around for that. If you have any questions in the meantime, or if there's anything that you want me to touch on when I make that video in the next few days, let me know in the comments. You know, I'm just one dude, so I can't remember everything, but if you think of something, drop it down in there and I will be sure to include it in that video. Also, I should say, I am so close to hitting 5,000 subscribers, which was my big goal for 2025. So we are in the last month of the year and we are a hair's breadth away from 5,000 subscribers. So if you like this kind of video and you want to make a nerd's dreams come true, consider subscribing. All right, that's going to be it for me. I'll catch you next time in the spare tech room. Be good.